Okay. Right. Just make yourself comfortable in the chair. Try and sit a little bit forwards if you can, and about a third of your weight in your feet. So you feel that support not just from your chair, but from your legs and feet and so on. Trying to get a sense of being able to sit upright without the sort of normal stiffness and straining that we might associate with that. So using the support of feet and hips to provide the foundation. Just rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Shoulder. Into your arm. The other side. Upper part of your chest. Belly. And then finally your legs. Now, sit back into the reclining position, feet out. So most of your weight now is dropping back into your chair. Your hands rest on your legs or on your belly, whatever's more comfortable for you. A couple of slow, gentle breaths. And just see if you can get this feeling initially of your attention, your thoughts settling into your body. And then with the greater awareness that you have, recognize how your body is sinking into the chair. So this gives us a clearer picture of what's going on in our body, and we can begin to recognize qualities like that sinking in, that sort of releasing feeling that offers a certain sort of fluidity to the soft tissue, certainly, of the body as we begin to lose some of the tightness and stiffness that we carry with us. And if we can recognize that process, then we can begin to just work with that a little bit with our intention. So having a sense of where you're going, that definitely helps you get in there. But it's never going to be the whole story. We don't want to give the impression that it's as simple as thinking the correct thoughts. We work with body and mind overlapping, but I could no more do Tai Chi simply by thinking about it and by generating the right sort of thoughts than I could fly a plane to Paris, because I can't fly a plane. So the use of intention is never intended to replace the physical practice, nor is it a suggestion that it simply overcomes any physical restrictions that we have. Excuse me. But rather, just realizing the potential for both body and mind when we can bring body and mind together. So we get an increased sense of calmness because we're paying attention to what's going on in our body rather than allowing our thoughts to simply dart around all over the place as they often do. And that goes a long way towards helping to alleviate stress and other kind of issues that we may have. But again, it's not going to take away the causes of that stress necessarily. We start to be able to change our responses, just as we change our response to the pull of gravity when we look at our posture. Doesn't mean that gravity isn't there. It just means that our relationship with it actually changes. Now, come back up to the upright position. So this idea of our response and how we relate to the pull of gravity really right at the heart of the art. We don't want to meet force with force. In particular, we don't want to meet an overwhelming force like the pull of gravity with an inadequate force. We don't want to lose that particular struggle. But we have the option of finding a way of being upright, standing, sitting, and moving. It doesn't necessarily increase that conflict with the pull of gravity. If we can bring our weight forwards again a little bit, so again about a third of your weight in your feet. On the side, it looks like this. And you can see if my weight's all back in my hips here, or even if I'm leaning back slightly now, I'm being pulled backwards. So I can't apply qualities like releasing, sung, relaxing. I can't move as easily because the first thing I would have to do is to push against gravity. If I come to here, then that's better. But even so, there's still this sense of being pulled backwards. So in the standing posture, shoulders would be in line with hips. But here in the chair, I come forwards a little bit. Now, the downward movement takes me into that space between, or created by, I suppose we could say, our hips and our legs. So they're at the four corners of a square. So any downward movement is going to bring me into that space. Then I can begin to just release some of the tightness, stiffness in shoulders and back, chest and belly. And start to get a sense for what's going on deeper within the body. So this is a mind-body response to the pull of gravity, one that we become used to, one that we begin to recognize in our memory, and so one that becomes part of our intention when we do Tai Chi, and hopefully at other times when we're not doing Tai Chi, but just doing our normal daily activities. But it has to be in conjunction with the actual physical change. So maintaining this posture, both in terms of being aware of the physical mechanics of what's going on and the feeling of it, just beginning to move slowly and gently, starting by turning your head just a little. And then your shoulders And go forwards. Just aware of any resistance to the movement that you feel in your body. Not pushing hard or straining against that. And then hands coming down. One of the sort of features, characteristics of these postures and movements is, as I said earlier, there tends to be this sense of space within the body, greater awareness of what's going on in our body. So a kind of option, if you like to think of it like that, to adjust how we move, letting the movement work within that space. And maybe even finding ways to get the movement to flow around the obstruction. This is where quality of sung comes forward, one of the places. Now, winding your arms around. Just check for yourself that you can still feel your weight sinking back in your hips, a bit of weight in your feet, and back the other way. Rest your hands. Tilt a little bit further forward so you feel more of your weight going into your legs. The feeling of your legs being slightly compressed. And then just feel how they begin to expand and they push you back, making sure that you don't come back too far. So just following the transfer of your weight, getting used to the idea that we can move our weight different ways. We can have an intention that our weight goes into our feet, that when we feel the push back, our weight goes into our hips and so on and so forth. Making sure that we don't rush this so that we give ourselves time in each position rather than going forwards, backwards. There's that space for just settling in, that releasing, letting go feeling that we've been looking at the last couple of weeks, both in hips and in your feet and legs. Try not to stiffen up in the muscles and joints of your legs, so allowing free passage for your weight to flow downwards. And then turn just a little bit. Turn in the other direction, so feeling your weight more in the leg that you're moving towards. And then circling around, feeling the weight transfer from one foot to another, back into your hips and across to the other hip. And again, noting whether there's any resistance to that. We want our weight to drop towards the ground so that our center of gravity remains low and remain stable. So that too becomes part of our intention. But once again, we have to be aware of the physical side of it. If I move out here, And I think, oh, well, all I'm going to do is drop my weight. That's what we do in Tai Chi. I'm just going to fall out the chair. So again, these three elements, change direction, these three elements, the so-called three jewels of Tai Chi, body, mind, and movement, or body, mind, and energy, if you prefer the term, really are three essential aspects of the same whole. Just like, as I've said before, three legs of a tripod. Take away one of the legs and the tripod would just fall over. And then bring the weight back into your hips more and stepping out. And again, an intention to plant the foot. So you put the heel down, lower the toes, maybe just pressing in a little bit, but it has to be the correct length of step. If you overstep, it's going to be more difficult to do that. And then on the other side. Okay. Just letting your hands drop. So trying to maintain this harmony between those three treasures of body, mind, and energy. Turning your hands palm forwards. Going forwards and careful not to overextend. Just letting your weight settle into your feet and then pushing back, not going back too far. This bird folds its wings. And then this time, fisherman castanet. So this is a good exercise for getting a sense of the quality of it. It's very simple movement, of course. But when we get, if you like, the mechanics of the movement correct, then the quality of the movement, flow of the movement, is a natural outcome of that. So the first thing to think about is that I don't want my head to go too far forward. There's no good going right out here. I'm now straining in my back. And again, there's a risk of falling out of the chair. I want my arm to follow my shoulders. My shoulder moves because my weight moves. If my weight isn't moving, then there's nothing to generate the energy that's going to move my arms in this particular exercise. Weight goes back, weight goes forwards. So given that that's happening, it's quite natural for my arm to swing. And that's really the majority of the movement. I might want to just tweak it a little bit so that it doesn't just swing randomly. There's a definite route there. But what isn't going to happen is I get to here and then go to there. I don't need to do that. I don't want to strain in my shoulder. That's one of the reasons we do this movement close to the beginning, because it establishes various aspects of the movement that we want to have in place for the rest of the session. So this and the previous exercise, bird folds its wings, I suppose are where we begin to, in a way, prepare for some of the later exercises. What we can do is begin to observe and then bring our intention to various changes in the upper part of our body, patterns of expansion and contraction, which can actually enhance the movement when we begin to intend them. And in many ways will make the movement less of a strain on shoulders, the arms. This time, when you get forward, imagine there's a ball behind your arms, so that now, as you push back, you're going to need a slightly stronger sense of pushing from your legs. You need to let the weight drop a little bit more. Feel this slightly stronger movement, because now you want your arm to be raised. You're not going to lift your arm. You're not going to get to here and do this. But you've got to think about how you can maintain this angle of your arm without straining. Make sure that your elbow isn't locked out. That helps to take away some of the tightness in the big muscles like the bicep, tricep, radial muscle. The movement in your back as your back extends and contracts. Make sure that you don't overdo that in either direction. And then pigeon spreads its wings. Aware of the pattern of expansion and contraction, the chest expanding as your arms are drawn apart, and then contracting, and then as your chest contracts, your back expands like the shoulder blades are sliding apart. And so the more that we pay attention to that and bring our intention to that, intending to expand the chest and then contract and so on and so forth, the more we find that the quality of movement in our arms, our shoulders, begins to change. It's less strained, and yet at the same time, we still feel that the big muscles of our arms and so on are really working quite hard. One more time. So elbows do go out, but your hands stay in front of your hips, giving you a more compact, focused movement. This is pushing wave. So the effort here shouldn't be seen as having to push and lift with your hands. The energy, the movement, the strength is there in the movement of your weight and those changes in the upper part of your body. Still your chest is expanding, contracting, and so on. So it's not the strength of your arms that is the primary mover here. In fact, the movement from your hips pushes your arm forwards. When you look at the shape of the arm, we maintain the shape of the muscles of our arms, and we get this very natural curvature upwards and then down. you would have to put a lot of effort into keeping the hand down. So you just allow them to push up. So it's by no means effortless. But the effort that we think we need to make isn't necessarily the effort that we do need to make. One more time. And then you do lower your hands down, but this time they're not, your elbows don't go out, they just withdraw to a point in front of your hips. You rotate your arms, rolling your fingers into a fist, and then releasing. So your arm winds up like a spring that is then released. Punch with both fists. What we're doing with this first set of exercises, well, I think it was the horizontal exercises, because they all involve this movement of our weight from our feet to our hips. One of the things that you're doing, I should say, is that you're beginning to just become aware of very subtle movements within your body that are capable of being influenced by your intention. Again, they are still very much physical movements. One more time. At the end of the movement, open your fingers, turn them out, wind them back in, and then finish in with, again, this press forwards. Now, turn your hands palm down in front of your belly. Turn in, ease forwards, turn back. Drawing your arms around in a smooth circle, polishing the table. Change direction. Then overextend your arms. Have a sense for how far your arms and your hands and your fingers can reach forwards without putting a strain on your back or your shoulders or in the arms themselves. One more in each direction. And when you get back to this position, just turning your hands palm up. And now, instead of alternating there's a bit of a push from your hips and your feet from one to the other. Use both together to create an upward move. And again, just be aware of the patterns of expansion and contraction in your body as you do this, trying to bring that intention there. Try not to lose the basic position, so try not to sort of do this, bending your back, you're angled forwards. Okay, we want that free passage of movement through our upper body as much as possible. And also having a sense for the enhanced flow of movement within your body, and keeping that as a definite intention all the way through. And sometimes what we may find is that our bodies respond to that intention with slight changes in posture, or maybe a releasing in shoulder. So if you've done the work, if you like to think of it like that, to understand what we mean by terms like releasing, if we've worked at refining our posture, that knowledge is already there, basically. That awareness, those techniques are already there. Then we're more likely to be able to use them without having to think too much consciously about them, but rather have this thing of our intention helping. And change into the wild goose. And then easing forward, so your hands can just slide in front of your knees. Sit back and parting the clouds. So we want to have the intention, but intention on its own is never going to be enough without the actual development of the physical side of it. Intention can help us to overcome some of the barriers that we encounter. Well, awareness can perhaps help us to, again, change our response to those barriers, maybe find alternative solutions. And dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Pushing up, not overextending upwards. One more time. And then changing, pushing in two directions. Again, not overextending your arms. Making sure that your hands are arriving the correct position, slightly in front of your body. I can only do this one-handed because of the wall there. You see, I can keep a nice open space in my back, soften my shoulders if my hand is there. But if I pull my arm back, which is quite uncommon, suddenly I'm tensing up. And moreover, if I try and release that, I will start to fall backwards. This encourages a precision in movement, which again comes out of this overlapping, this integration of mind and body. And then extend one foot, ease forwards, aiming towards your heel, scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then once again, your hands loosely fisted, and this time a more upward movement, grasping the tiger's ears. Change sides. And then grasping the tiger's ears. Bring your feet up. So as you sit there, just aware that actually this space created between your feet and your hips in conjunction with your chair gives space for you for your center of gravity to drop. If you know, if there was a, I don't know, if the chair suddenly wasn't there or something like that, no amount of intention is going to stop you falling through. The other thing to consider is, would this feel as comfortable if what you were sitting on was a very tiny stool or something like that, or even something like a kind of narrow pole or something. We need to find the right chair to get the right stance to enable these things to happen. And we can learn to maintain some of these qualities in less friendly environments. Tai Chi is a martial art after all, and so it's experienced at doing that. But still, the physical side of it has to be recognized. Now, just rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. And to one shoulder and your arm. The other side. Upper part of your chest. And then your belly. And your legs. Pushing your heels up. And so. And back the other way. Okay, and then standing. So, particularly important to think about your feet, your basic stance when you're standing. Your stance, the positioning of your feet, is actually going to determine what happens in every other part of your body. So we have our feet hip width apart. We have them too close together. What we're looking for is the feeling of our center of gravity dropping down. And if you imagine that your center of gravity exists in your pelvis, you could take that a bit further and have this idea that your pelvis is going to drop down. Imagine trying to, push something through a space that was nowhere near big enough for it to go through. So imagine trying to thread a needle with a rope. It's not going to happen. So we have to try and get the feet in the correct position, and try and have your weight a little bit forwards and drop your hips back, softening your hips and your knees, and you'll immediately feel big muscles of your legs beginning to work harder. So they need to be maintained in good condition to allow this smooth passage downward to the center of your gravity. And then sinking down and pushing up, not lifting yourself up, but pushing up from the ground. So there's a slight sense of your feet pushing downwards, your legs expanding a little bit, feeling the movement coming up through your back, like a wave coming up from below and then draining away. And then wild goose. One more time. Let your hands drop down. Keeping the width of your step, take a step forwards. Intention now is for your weight to move from one foot to another very accurately, very precisely. To have a period of just settling in each time. Maintaining your posture with your shoulders in line with your hips. And knowing where your feet are means that your intention can be accurate. Feeling your foot, your leg filling up with the weight reinforces that awareness. And then raising your toes and your heels. The more of your weight settles down in that leg, now that you've located your leg. And then stepping in. And then on the other side. Raising your toes and your heel. Keeping your body upright. You can drop your center of gravity. You can release in your hips and so on and so forth. But remember that your head is heavy. And if your head is not above your foot when you go to take the step, so just stepping in, then it's going to pull you forwards. Gravity is still there. What we're looking at is how we're moving in relation to gravity rather than trying to pretend it doesn't exist. Take a few steps through. And then back. So have your right foot forwards. The standing version of fisherman castanet. First of all, facing forwards. Noticing how your arms swing downwards and upwards without you having to make that happen. It's a natural response, of course. And then this time, adding the turn in. And as you go forwards, just turn a little bit further and sort of encouraging the hands to come up a little bit more and then dropping down. Turn, feel the expansion through the left side of your body. And then coming forwards, hands coming down, turning, feeling the expansion through the right side of your body and then down. Making this sideways figure of 8 or infinity sign. Good. Try that on the other side. So if we're doing this movement correctly, we will once again be aware of those patterns of expansion and contraction, how they're working sort of behind the scenes in a sense, as part of the overall movement. And then we can begin to this, there's a slight change. We go into the movement with the turn. And then we just choose the movements that we want to bring our intention to enhance, to expand through the right side of our body, push our arms up, to expand through the left side, feeling the movement coming up from the legs, still sinking down, remember, produces that upward movement, that response from the body. So we reduce the need for straining and stiffening the upper back and shoulders. And so now you can bring your foot in, less chance of stumbling, losing the movement. And either forwards or backwards. Maybe if you feel that you've got the root, the alignment to support it, maybe just raising your foot a little bit more. I'm going to change direction. And bring your feet parallel. Lovely, go back to your chairs. So, once again, giving yourself a chance to settle in. Really, this last exercise very much leaves us with this impression, awareness of the overall posture, the qualities of that posture that we want to try and take away with us from the actual practice. So a third of your weight forwards, hips sinking back, let your hands drop down, just aware of the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. And as your shoulders drop, it's almost like they're dropping into your rib cage, into your spine. So becoming aware of this stronger sense of support from within your body, we begin to notice a lot more when we're less concerned with sort of stiffening our shoulders. So then pushing your arms up and out, bring them around as though you're going to hold the ball, drawing in and returning to that awareness of that inner structure of the body, feeling them settling, releasing. Trying to maintain it as you push up and down, but recognizing that at a certain point, you may just lose that awareness, but then once again, coming back and returning. Just doing one more after this one. And this time just trying to maintain that overall sense of your posture, how it feels in your back and your belly and your chest. Can you feel yourself sort of just unconsciously in almost coming out of the posture? And can you bring yourself back in? Can you have the intention to bring yourself back in? Or is there some kind of physical reason? Have you, for instance, is your back aching, for instance? Maybe you just need to rest in that position. Or is there some kind of thing in your shoulder, for instance, that means it makes it very difficult for it to drop? If you've got a frozen shoulder, then you may have the intention to release there, but you're not necessarily going to always be able to do that. You may be able to get more movement there, but chances are the shoulder will still stay closed. And then just open your eyes. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody, as always. Just